Good morning, everybody, or afternoon, depends when you're watching this. I hope you're all well out there. We thought it was time to do an assembly story for you. So I'm going to be using my Thinking Stories book, and we're going to do it in one take, so any mistakes are going to be included. And we have the fabulous Ms Baverstock as camera person, so a round of applause. Superb. This story is called The Story Stealer. And it's got quite a formidable character in there. Yeah? The character steals things, but you mustn't be scared, because at the end there is a happy ending. But, as ever, that depends on you. As you know, these stories haven't really got an ending. So this story starts about story stealers. They are intent on ridding the world of stories. You might bump into one of these evil creatures, but if you do, you've got to run away as fast as possible. Go! Because these story stealers carry three things with them. You notice these stories have always got threes. Three things. Number one is this enormous, long, stripy pipe. Right? With the long, stripy pipe, they try to sneak up on children. And they put the pipe right behind you and they start sucking the stories out of people's heads. All the stories you've heard, all the stories you want to tell, and every story ever known comes flying out of that person's head, straight down the pipe. The second thing they carry with them is a story knife. And this looks like, those things that cavemen used to carry. A little flinty knife. And they find a book. And they look around and they make sure no one's there. And they scrape all the words out of the storybook into the next thing that they carry with them. And the next thing they carry with them, around their neck, a bit like this, but not like this at all, is a jar. And in that jar, they call it a story jar, that's where they scrape all the words into. All the words from all the books. So that all the books are blank. Everybody's head is blank. There are no more stories. Now, the last thing that happens, I meant to mention this, is in the jar, everything turns into this blue, pasty mush. All the words all mixed up together. Now, a very long time ago, one of these ghastly story stealers came to live in our world, just round the corner from Hotspur School. But it's a long time ago, so don't worry about it, but this is the story of what happened. It travelled from place to place, from storybook to storybook, from child to child, sucking out stories, scraping stories out of their books, until nobody in the whole Hotspur land had any stories left. Nobody knew anything to say to each other. Nobody could think of a story to tell. And the fact is that what happened is nobody could warn the next person about the story stealer, because the story stealer had stolen all the capacity to tell stories. Problem. The story stealer roamed for years and years until he had stolen every single story. What it did though then, it found an enormous oak tree, a bit like the one you can see in the corner of our field. What it did, it dug a hole with its story knife and it tipped in all the stories from its story jar. Shboof, like that. All the words in a big, blue, mushy mass. Looked up. First time it smiled in years, its job was done. It covered over the stories with some mud and then disappeared from the land. It travelled to other places in the Buckinghamshire area to steal stories from them. Now more and more years passed. More and more years passed. Everyone was walking around like this. They had nothing in their heads. They had nothing to tell each other. Nothing at all was happening. But then one spring day, out of the sky, from who knows where, came this seed. And it landed. Where did it land, do you think? This is one of the problems with doing assemblies like this. There's no feedback. But it landed right sploof on top of where all the stories the story stealer had stolen were. The seed itself was enormous for a seed. It was like a that big, big enough to fit in your fist, landed, oh, it was there. What it did, it cracked open where the stories were buried underneath, and the roots from the seed started to go down and down and down, digging further and further, further and further into the ground. And one spring day, out of the hole popped this little shoot, a tiny little shoot, but it grew faster than most trees. Oh, my knees are hurting. It grew faster than most trees ever do. And then in late summer, it started to rain. Rain, 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 onto the tree. The tree grew faster and faster and faster, faster than any tree had ever grown before. And there it was. Its leaves came popping out everywhere. It's a beautiful tree. Now, people in the Hillsborough area walked around looking at the tree because they got nothing to say to each other because all the stories have been stolen. Still, no improvement there then. But this tree was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. But then, autumn came. And you know what happens when autumn comes? When autumn comes, the leaves on the trees start to fall. And what happened was something rather remarkable. The wind blew, the leaves left this beautiful tree, and then they started to drift around. And where they landed, if somebody walked past a fallen leaf, suddenly they started to remember things. They started to remember stories. They started to remember things that happened to them in the past. They remembered the story about the twits. They started to remember the story about the magic garden, or this one. They even remembered Sophie Mackenzie's book, Time Train to the Blitz. Even that was remembered. An amazing book, by the way. Fantastic things were happening. Everybody walked around. Everyone was happy once more. But then, as always happens in these stories, he came back. The story stealer heard about the tree. He heard about the leaves blowing with all the stories written on them hidden in the ground. He was furious. He came back. He found a small sleeping child who was now full of stories, sleeping, dreaming of stories. He took out his long, thin, blue, stripy pipe. He snuck up on the boy. He put it just behind his head. And as he was about to suck all the stories back out of the boy's head, the boy turned around, grabbed hold of the pipe, and blew as hard as he could. And that is the end of the story. So what your job is now is to find out what wondrous thing happened as soon as that boy turned round to take his revenge on the story stealer. Let us know. Write in, email in, take a picture, whatever you want. Be here next week. Be here next week on a Friday for our next story. Thank you very much and have a great weekend. Bye.